Hey, what's up, YouTube? Welcome back to One Take Wonder, the series where I talk about stuff in one take because I'm too lazy to edit videos. All right, so I wanted to make a follow-up video to this because to the Yaira video because first of all, thanks for all the support on that video. Small channel, it means a lot to get over a couple hundred views, so that's pretty nice. And I found out that that's probably not just because people are looking up reviews of Yaira, but apparently the Vonster, who is somewhat prominent in the indie comics scene. He did a video reacting to my review, and it was a pretty. It wasn't just your standard like, oh cool, I'm gonna go let my dog out while I react to the stream. It wasn't that type of video. It was like an actual constructive reaction where he added to it and pointed out some things that I didn't even notice. It was a pretty good video, I thought, overall. But yeah, so if any of you came from that, which evidently some of you did, because one of you commented on the video and said that, you came from Von Klaus, I was like, okay, that's pretty cool. Thanks for the shout out. But yeah, and I tried to give my best honest review of Yaira in the last one, but I didn't really go in depth into something that I think is the biggest, maybe not wasted potential, but like wasted opportunity, I guess, for one character in here that I think could have shown way more than he was allowed to, and that is Magus. Magus, as you're seeing in the corner of the screen here, Magus is this very, kind of disturbed insectoid type wizard character. Very alien design. There's another appearance of him that where he has like a sort of human-like appearance with like a robe, it appears to be, but it's actually just his wings. And that's a very cool appearance. And I want to talk about a major flaw I feel the comic had, and this is coming from someone who's written several stories as novels or comics. Like I haven't had any huge successes, mainly just because of exposure, and it's very hard to get your name out there, man. But I do hope Little Miss Steel will break that mold. I think Little Miss Steel is very good, and I think it's the best work I've done. And this is criticism coming from someone who's watched tons of writing guides. I've gone to the YouTube school of writing, so to speak. I'm subscribed to so many writing people, and art people as well. And it's just, this is coming from someone who has some experience, right? This isn't just me yapping. This isn't the yappening of 2024. Now I want to talk about Magus because I think that he should have carried this entire comic. All right, so let's talk about him real quick. He's this dark wizard freakazoid thing, very menacing appearance, and his inclusion is sort of redundant in the comic due to two other villains, and that is Yanessa and Yatoni, because everyone has to start with YA. I guess that's a theme. That's kind of, I guess, neat, maybe. And I said that it's too busy overall. The comic is too busy because of Alpha Core's inclusion, the three villains, and Yaira's backstory all being forced into one. So I thought it would be fun. To take the comic as it is and sort of look at it as like an editor. Like, I'm pretending I'm Chuck Dixon, all right? And Eric July has sent a beta copy of Yaira to me, Chuck Dixon, and I'm going to review the writing and change things based on my experience as a writer to make it, okay? Now, I'm not Chuck Dixon, so I don't think that this is his level of writing, but I am giving my honest critique as if I am looking at this like a beta comic, and I'm going to make my review to fix things. This is what I would recommend, okay? This is what I would recommend here. So first of all, let's change things to where Magus is a messenger from Yanessa and Yatoni. They do not appear in this comic until the end, which I'll get to. it's just Magus. He is the main antagonist. He's going around. He's causing Yaira a lot of problems. And he's doing all the talking. This way, the dialogue, this is the end of the line, is not repetitive because it's only one villain. And I would only have him say that line in specific once instead of twice in the same scene. But I digress. Um, Reveal the true form of him. I would reveal the true form of Magus halfway through the comic, where he stabs Yaira with like this magic lightning. And the reason for that is simple: stakes. When you have a wizard, it's like, oh, this guy is magic. He's probably not a physical threat. Yaira can just like, punch him or whatever. But then maybe let's say he does get punched. Let's say Yaira lands a hit and this infuriates Magus and leads him to reveal his true self, his true form. And it's this hideous, grotesque zoom in on like the features of him, like the face, the spider legs, the wings, and everything. Show everything. Since this comic has a lot of shading detail and stuff, and is fairly pretty accurate proportion to real life. Make that so specific, like focused on how grotesque this guy is. Truly, the mask is off. Literally, the mask is off, and this is how he actually looks. It's disgusting, and I would have that revealed halfway through to show what she's actually dealing with here. This would suddenly do like a small little twist where you think you know what you're dealing with, but in reality, this creature is totally different than what you initially thought, and it catches her off guard, which allows her to get struck, stabbed through the gut. With this lightning, this magic lightning, right? And this would raise the stakes of it. It's a fun twist reveal, but some body horror to it, right? Which the Saskas are definitely into some horror. They're into some other things that I didn't even realize they were into, but anyway, and so again, this would completely raise the stakes of it. This will make it more intense. I would actually show Yaira weakened after this wound. Like maybe she does get stitched up because of Altona's help. Maybe she helps her, be able to walk and fight, but she's not at 100%. She's still in a lot of pain from it because it's some kind of curse magic, right? It's not just stabbed through the stomach. It's also the fact that that he has put some kind of a curse or poison on her, and it's making her weaker. It's making her unable to be at full strength. So now in the first half of the comic she already had a tough time dealing with him at full strength. Now she's not at full strength and having to deal with her, which means she's going to have to use her wits instead. And this is where Altona comes into the comic. Obviously as it is, she does help get rid of the bugs. Which is a main, sort of a main point of the plot, is that the bugs are going around, which I don't really think it was really set up that well, that the bugs were a huge problem to Yaira, because they weren't really looking for Yaira. They were just kind of going at anyone. And that's something I would change too, is that the bugs specifically would go after Yaira and pursue her essence. Now, this wouldn't necessarily limit the bugs to just finding Yaira. This would lead the bugs to her descendant, the grandma of Stefania. I think that was her name, Stefania. I remember it ending with a YA because Yaira, YA, it has to have a YA in it. I don't think that's necessarily bad. It's just kind of funny. But yeah, I think that was her name, Martinez. I was calling her Martinez in the last video because all I could remember was her last name, because I think that's the last thing that Solari said. But have the bugs track Yaira's essence, which there would be some hints of in the granny and in Martinez, since they obviously she has some of Yaira's powers, so it would definitely be tracking her. But it would also explain why Magus just knows, like, oh, you're going to this mansion with this old lady in it. Ha! I've killed the old lady. How does that make you feel? It would be more logical, I think, if Magus knew where she was because of the bugs themselves, instead of him, kind of dispersing them afterwards, right? And I feel like that would be more logical. I feel like that would be better for the plot. It would make, and it does make Magus, how it is in the comic currently. It's it does make Magus a personal villain to Yaira because he is going after her family. Whether it's revealed to the reader or not, he is going after family, which is obviously something that Yaira does actually care about. Um, and and basically the comic kind of continues the way it does. But now, instead of having a final showdown against the three villains, it's a final showdown against Magus. While again, to reiterate, Yaira is still weakened. She is able to hold her ground, but still is kind of losing until Altona takes care of the bugs. This causes this causes Magus to become distracted and dismayed at the loss of the babies, as Magus was calling them, and he dies in the same way. Right, he's taken out the same way, limbs being ripped off, and then the head, decapitated and all that kind of stuff. And I think that works fine as the sole antagonist of the comic. I think Magus could have carried this entire first issue by himself, or by itself. Sorry, I assumed Magus's gender. I would exclude the volcano scene because I think that was overkill. I think that was just, I was very confused about the volcano thing. I understand, like, they're trying to explain it, and it's fine that they're explaining it, but I just think personally it was overkill. We already had kind of an explosion set up with the oil rig, which ruined the Texas economy. But don't mess with Texas. But it ruined the Texas economy. So yeah, I think that was, the volcano was a little bit of an overkill. I think it makes more sense for Magus to bait out Yaira, threatening to kill Stefania, because obviously Yaira cares about Stefania. She doesn't want her to die because evidently she is family, and I think it would be a better, more personal final battle than what we get. Now, obviously, what we get is personal because these characters are only here for Yaira. They're only, the Yatoni and Yanessa only care about Yaira because they want to either kill her or bring her back by force to wherever their homeworld is. And the rest of the comic can go the same way. Alpha Corps recruits Stefania. I think that's perfectly fine. She blames Yaira for her grandma's death. Perfectly fine. No issue with that. I think that's great drama. That's a good setup for the next for Yaira too. And then fine. Have the Neptune scene at the end. I still think it's ridiculous for all of this to be in one comic. But if you want to add that, do it. But I would add the real cliffhanger scene. I would add with the Yatoni and Yanessa knowing that Magus has failed, and now they will take matters into their own hands. They will bring Yaira to the end of the line in the next exciting issue of Yaira #2. I think that would be a far better cliffhanger than, hey, Neptune's here. Even though he's kind of rumored, it seems like he's set up to be the first one to defy whatever order is set by their people. He seems to be the first defier, since they keep comparing Yaira to him. And while we're at it, I would add a scene where Stefania actually cares about her grandma before you find out that of her saying, "Oh, my grandma, she's dead." I would add a scene before the robbery, before Stefania even gets her powers. I would add a scene where she's visiting her grandma, and there's some mentioning about some financial troubles, which would give all the motivation in the world for her to rob a bank, other than her just kind of being, a criminal. It would make her more three-dimensional and less shallow, because she's kind of shallow as it is. I'm sure her character will develop. But as is right now, I just really didn't care that much for her. Up until around the end, I was like, okay, this is interesting. She's a descendant of Yaira, and now she's at odds with her. I like this idea. I like it. But what else can I say? Look, sometimes there can be too much of a good thing, okay? Each villain, and I would say, even each plot point, have great things to add to Yaira as a series. But when there's simply too much going on, too much information, too much characters talking, it can spell disaster for a debut comic of a multi-part series, and that's what Yaira is. It is a multi-part series. I don't think the Rippaverse is going to cancel Yaira just because some people don't like this first comic. And I don't even know if I'm the popular opinion or if I'm a hot take. I have no idea. I really just, it seems like, if I look at Rippaverse fans, they seem to, and I'm one of them. I'm not a detractor. Some people are thinking I'm like, I've turned coat. I'm now against the Rippaverse. I'm not. I still, think that they're, really important for the indie comic scene because it shows that it can be successful. I just think that this one is a little bit of a letdown compared to the others, especially compared to Alpha Core. And you know, if Magus was the only villain in this comic, I think my complaints about everything else would be far less potent. I might not have been so harsh on this comic if Magus was the only villain, because the villains were the main source of most of my complaints. There were some other things that I complained about, obviously, and I don't retract those. I wouldn't, those would still be complaints, but I probably wouldn't be as disappointed overall if there was only one villain and that villain was Magus, because this character has a great design. I think it's a great, almost like a force of nature type of villain, where he's not going to stop coming after you because he thirsts for fearful flesh. He's a villain who's just a villain. He's a villain who loves being evil, and that's fine. Look at Palpatine. Palpatine is regarded as one of the best movie villains ever made, and he's just a cackling old man with lightning powers. And it doesn't have to. Not every villain has to be so complex. Not every villain has to be a hero of their own story. Sometimes they can just be bad guys. And I think the perfect example in this case would be Magus. I think Magus can just be evil for the sake of being evil, if his presence in the story is personally against and damaging to the main character, which would be Yaira. I think there was far better potential. If I'm Chuck Dixon and I'm given Yaira, a beta copy of Yaira to edit and tweak the story of, that's what I would have done. Now, and another thing about this is that, less characters, less villains, less you have to draw them. Trust me. In Demonico, my hybrid novel on Webtoon, which you can read for free, all of, it is, there's a main antagonist of the last season who has 6 arms. And I immediately regretted doing that because I had to draw 6 arms every single time he appeared. And yeah, maybe sometimes I could copy and paste some elements and paste them over here and rework them a little bit to make it look right. But man, it just got annoying to draw a 6-armed character every scene he appeared in. That was with a hybrid novel, which is effectively a book with pictures. So it was just too much. It was too annoying for me to draw. I got really tired of drawing him. I would have hated myself even more if it was a full-on comic experience. Whenever I inevitably reboot Demonico as a full comic in the future, Peter is having 4 arms. I'm sorry. If you like the 6-arm design, I'm sorry, but I'm drawing him with 4. But less characters as well means less dialogue. You don't have to write as much. You don't have to fill the screen with as much dialogue for characters. You don't have to keep in mind this personality, this personality, this personality. It makes things a lot simpler from a writing and an artist perspective. And at the risk of being narcissistic, let me show you a page of Little Miss Steele. This is a comic that's coming out. I've teased this page. This is not a brand new teaser. I've shown this page off a lot because I'm very proud of it. This is an action scene from Little Miss Steele. And what you can see with this is that the villain is not, villainously monologuing about how evil he is or how genius his master plan is and how it's effortless to fight him. He's not monologuing this entire fight. Sure, there's some dialogue exchange between the characters, but it's brief and it's focused more so on the action points because the action is doing all the speaking, right? You've got, in this page in particular, Death Metal, which is the main antagonist, is not even talking here. It's his AI assistant Iris, which is Siri backwards, if you were curious. I know I'm very creative, but the only talking point here is that she's saying yes sir and deploying the arm, which is flying, and you see in the 3 panels in the middle, it's getting closer and closer. It grabs her face. There's no reason for me to add V, which is the main character, Lil Steele. There's no reason for me to add a dialogue box of her saying something during this action point. This is a page that is entirely filled with action because there's no need for these characters to be talking right now. But if you open up a page in Yaira, everyone is talking, and they're not just saying quick little quips or one-liners. They're given like full paragraphs every single panel of the page they're in, and it's too repetitive, and it's a problem. But it's not irredeemable. Like I said, I don't think Yaira is terrible. I think it's not good, and I think it could have been at least decent if Magus was the main antagonist. If they let Magus carry the burden like Atlas carrying the world of this comic, I think he could have done it. I think the comic actually would have been much more enjoyable for me personally if it wasn't so bogged down in the dialogue. But that's really all I had to say about this. I just wanted to make a follow-up. Thanks so much for watching the first video. I really appreciate it. If you're new here, I've made plenty of videos, discussing some writing in superhero, either comics, video games, shows, movies. I did a couple of videos about Arcane a few years ago that I'm really excited to get back into because Arcane Season 2 is coming this year. Very happy. I also talk a lot about the comic that I'm working on, Little Miss Steele, which is coming. I'm still trying to get a hold of Rippaverse, which is Rippaverse's side business wing of helping other comic creators with fulfillment. I'm still trying to see if I can work out something with them. If not, I may just go digital with the comic, okay? I don't want to do that, but I might just have to do it with limited physical printing, limited physical editions. So with that being said, thanks so much for watching. If you want to watch more of my content, subscribe, hit the bell to get notified whenever I post more. Follow me on my social medias. The link tree is in the description. Until next time, peace out.